Just looked at a study by the National Institute of Mental Health, and they said that for medication treatment alone, on average, it costs about $1,100 a year. But to do medication and behavioral therapy, it's closer to $7,000 or $8,000 per year. So it's just under $7,000 to do behavioral therapy, but it's only $1,100 or $1,200 to do medication therapy. So they're going to lean towards making it easier for you to put your child on medicine, but not do the behavioral therapy. And the medicines can be very effective. I don't want to take away from that. But there are also some risks to using those. And it's also true that our most ideal or best practice is going to be to do maybe both medicine and behavioral therapy. So a few things about behavioral therapy. One of the most important principles is, according to our research, children with ADHD function best when 4 out of 5 interactions with the adult that's taking care of them are positive. When we do research on positive and negative interactions in the classroom, we find that on average there are 13 negative interactions from the teacher for every 1 positive. Okay? This is what is a problem for children with ADHD. One of the things that I do with those kids is when I'm teaching this, I like to do these happy cats and sad puppies. And so I'll tell them, when I catch you following the rules, I'll color in a happy cat. And if you're not, I'm going to fill in a sad puppy. And when we're done, if you have more happy cats than sad puppies, then you get a prize. And I'll show them the prize box and get them excited about it. And I'm not going to make them work all day or to the end of the week. You know, for kids with ADHD, there's pretty much just right now and what happens next, and that's it. If you say the end of the week, you might as well say, if you make all A's until you're 18, then I'll buy you a Ferrari. That's, next week, 3 years, 30 years, that's all the same to somebody with ADHD. They're pretty much in right now. So here's the trick. The trick is I don't actually ever give the kids any sad puppies, okay? And they hardly ever figure this out. So instead of giving sad puppies, I can say, you're not sitting on your mat like I asked you to, but you're a good kid. I bet pretty soon you will. And as soon as you do, I'll color in a happy cat for you. Or I can look at the other children who are doing what they're supposed to, and I can offer an incentive to them. And then I can let my child who's not on know that as soon as he gets himself where he needs to be, then he's going to get a reward too. So we want to find ways, and it takes a variety of strategies. There is no one thing that's always going to work. We got to be ready to be flexible and change things up for these children. But if we can keep ourselves on the positive side, if we can understand this principle that whenever we see a behavior, we've always got a choice. We can be negative. We can say, Adam, why aren't you in your seat? How come you don't follow the rules? How many times do I have to tell you that? I'm so tired of reminding you. Well, guess what? If it's a kid like me who put snakes in Mrs. Hefty's desk and cut the cords to the headphones, I'm going to get you back for that, all right? That is not going to get my best performance. I'm going to be mad. I'm going to be hurt. I'm going to be, caught up in this in my own head. It's not going to help me do better. It's going to work a lot better if you say, Brad, you know what, you're a really good kid, but that's not what I'm looking for. I need you to come back over here to your seat. And as soon as you finish that, then I'll let you make a trip to the library to go check out some of those science books you really wanted. If we can be like that, because you're such a smart kid, and I know you're working really hard at learning to do what I ask and keep yourself still even though it's hard, and I really appreciate the way you've been working at that. If we can find ways to nurture the child's heart and soul this way, you're going to get a much better result. By the way, there's a website you can go to called www.difficultchild.com, and there's a guy named Howard Glasser, and he has some of the best interventions that I've ever seen. I would highly recommend it. This is great stuff for learning ways to intervene with a child who has ADHD or is in other ways very bright and intense. Some of the other things that he teaches is that, sometimes these bright and intense kids, they get really bored, and so they're really out to get you. And so if you think about it, what's the best way?
Stop. So you ended off leaving about Howard Glasser's interventions and what to do with a really bright, intelligent child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another great idea I got from Howard Glasser was the idea that these children are bright and intense and they're seeking more stimulation. And so if you think about it, if you go by and if you're the teacher and you're very professional and you say, now Steve, keep your hands to yourself. How much energy is that? Versus if Steve keeps poking the kid in front of him and the teacher tells him not to, and he looks back with that gleam in his eye and you know it's coming and he does it again, and finally you lose your cool, right? And you say, Steve, how many times do I have to tell you? Keep your hands to yourself. That's it, I've had enough. Go to the office. How much energy is that? If you just forget about positive and negative, okay? If they do the right thing and you say, I really like the way you're keeping your hands to yourself, a little bit of energy. But if they keep doing the wrong thing, they can get you to freak out. Sometimes that's what some of those children are looking for. So sometimes they really are out to get you. So you want to find a way to discipline yourself to putting more energy into when the problems are not occurring. Okay? Because usually what happens, if we've got a kid who has trouble sitting still and paying attention and staying on task, what's going to happen is they're going to be getting more of these. They're going to be getting more sad puppies and happy cats. They're going to be hearing throughout the day, why don't you keep your hands to yourself? That's the second time I reminded you that now you're going to get a color change. You're going to go from green to yellow and then from yellow to red. So if you make 2 mistakes or I get you twice, now I'm going to make up this big lie and say it's a bad day, okay? And I'm going to give you a bad note home. And at some point, these kids are going to wise up, all right? They're going to get to be like 7 or 8 years old, and they're going to realize, you know what? Even if I try my very best, there's no way I can sit in my seat and stay on task all day long like Susie can. I'm going to forget and mess up a couple of times. And so if you're just going to say that's a bad day, and you're not going to notice all the other time, because let's think about it, folks. If a school day is 7 hours, it's 420 minutes. If we have 2 episodes that are 5 minutes each, and a 5-minute behavioral episode would be kind of long, that's a total of 10 minutes out of 420, which is 2.5% of the time, which means that even though they may have gone from green to yellow and yellow to red, and now it's a bad day, they really only misbehaved for 10 minutes, or 2.5% of the time, which means that 97.5% of the time they were doing it right. So we need to learn to be more honest about their behavior and not have our own thinking errors or cognitive distortions about children's behavior. And we need to not tell them lies about their behavior. Because after a while, they'll figure it out. And guess what? If you're giving a kid more sad puppies than happy cats, what are you going to have in your house or in your classroom? You're going to have a sad puppy, right? And what are you going to be? That's right. You got even as many as just one sad puppy in your class, you're probably going to be having a tough day too. So this is just a way to demonstrate to you that you want to find a way to discipline yourself, to put a lot more energy into when the rules are not being broken. Because then you get to interact with the child in a positive way. Then you get to use words. And by the way, those words you're using, that's like loading software onto their hard drive. You want to be telling them that they can, they do, they will, and they are. Instead of they can't, they don't, and they won't. All right? And so this is a very important concept. And this is key to effective behavioral therapy and behavior management with children that have ADHD or some symptoms of ADHD. I can't emphasize this enough. I can't emphasize how much you can transform a child by doing it the right way and changing them from having a failure identity to having a success identity versus how much you can damage them and how difficult you can make it for them if you're following conventional wisdom and just waiting until there's a problem and then putting your energy into them. There isn't any one thing that's always going to work. You need to be ready to change things up. These are children that like things that are new. And so we want to find ways to make things new a lot. So you're going to see me using a prize box and using prizes as an incentive. But if I've got the same prizes in there 3 weeks in a row, they're going to get tired of it. That's why when we do these behavior contracts with kids with ADHD, they'll work for like 2 or 3 weeks and then they don't work. Well, here's why. That's because, if we say, okay, if you have 4 out of 5 days good, you get a Happy Meal at the end of the week. Well, if they get that a couple of weeks, then Or like if I'm using a prize box like this one that I have here and that you'll see in my demonstration in a few minutes, if it has the same prizes in it every time, They're going to be excited about the prizes the first couple times when they root through there and there's like new stuff and stuff they never saw before. But if they keep seeing the same stuff and you don't add to it and change up what the rewards or the reinforcers are, they're going to get satiated. They're going to get bored with it. And so we're going to want to change things up often. So be ready for that. You're going to see where I had some kids that were doing great with these happy cats and sad puppies, and then I had a group that suddenly wasn't responding to that anymore, so I just changed things up a little bit. I started giving them some money, and I made an envelope and put their name on it. And the reason I made the envelope was because if I was handing them this money, these kids are ADHD and disorganized, what do you think is going to happen with it? It's going to be a mess, they're going to lose it, then they're going to be upset. I don't want them to have to keep up with stuff, so I'm being mindful of that. I improvised or changed things up a little bit because I suddenly found that with this particular little group, my happy cats and sad puppies weren't working anymore. So what I did was I made these envelopes and stuck them on the prize box and put their names on them, and I gave them cash, okay? And this is something you can do with an older kid. You can pay them in money. You can make a list of things that they want. This is what you do with a child that's oppositional and defiant. You get control over their access to stuff that they want, like if they're older, there's their cell phone, TV, video games, and you sell them time with those things. And so you can make a list of what their chores and responsibilities are, and you can be paying them for good behavior, and then they can in turn buy their time with stuff that they want. There's no reason why you should be letting them enjoy all the things that you pay for if they're not treating you with respect in your household. So basically with oppositional-defiant disorder, we don't want to try to make them because that's a power struggle that they'll win every time by not doing. So what we want to do instead is we want to get control over their access to stuff that they enjoy, and then we just wait them out. And if they're really bored and they got nothing to do, eventually they'll say, okay, fine, I'll do some of your stupid stuff, so I can get paid and start getting a little bit of what I want. And once they get going, you'd be amazed at how their self-esteem and their posture and their behavior changes. Because when they start contributing to the running of your household, when they're doing chores and they're helping out, they feel a lot better about themselves. People feel better about themselves when they earn what they get. Much better than when they just get what they get, okay? So I made these envelopes for these kids, and because I didn't want to be handing this money to them because they're little kids and they have ADHD, and you know what's going to happen with the money. It's going to be everywhere, and then they're going to be upset because they can't find it when it's prize time. So I've got these envelopes here. You can also do something where you're putting, you can cut up a bunch of different ideas that are rewards. You can put them in the envelope and put a question mark on it, and then when they earn the opportunity, they can pull something out of the envelope, and they don't know what it's going to be. So you got like a bunch of little things, like you get to play with clay for 5 minutes, popcorn, you get to have a friend spend the night on the next weekend. So you can have a bunch of little things in there, and then maybe like one big thing. And there's nothing wrong with being a little bit cleverly manipulative here. So if you're wanting to take your kids to SeaWorld anyway, put SeaWorld in there. You can rig it, that's okay. So if there's one really big thing that they really, really want, and a lot of little things, it's going to work like the lottery. People are going to keep spending that dollar because they may get, 24 million, even though the odds are very slim. So we want to make this like a lottery or like a slot machine. That makes it fun and exciting. If they never know when you're going to notice them doing well, and they never know what the prize is going to be or how big it might be, you're bringing some elements in there that is going to increase the kind of responding that you're looking for. So I have some more resources about this at the end. The idea of the mystery envelope with a question mark, that comes from a guy named Dr. Jensen, and he wrote a book called The Tough Kid Toolbox. You'll see it in my resources also. Excellent resource. Just a couple more things to remember before I show the example about behavior management. You want to be able to use start and not stop commands, okay? Because let's think about it. If you have somebody who's ADHD, do they ever not do anything? Or look at kids, how often do they not do anything? Or if I even told you, if I said, stop, just stop it. Hey, isn't it going to feel a little difficult to just continue to stop and not do? You know, we're usually used to doing something all the time. And so we want to give them start commands, not stop commands. Instead of stop hitting your sister or stop throwing that, it's more effective to say, hey, why don't you go, I think it's time for Scooby-Doo. Why don't you go turn on the TV? Or, you know what, we've got some things that we can get you going on here. Would you like to get out your Play-Doh station, or would you like to get out your train tracks? If you can give them something to do that's incompatible with the undesired behavior, that's going to be a lot more effective than a stop command. Kids don't stop very well. It works a lot better if we say, hey, do this instead. Now we give them something that's fun to do, that's going to keep them busy and keep them out of